What's up, and welcome to Just Be Humans, the definitive podcast for business leaders who have built their businesses through relationships and are looking to digital marketing to scale. I'm your host, Danny Marawinski, and today I got a really super special episode. It's all about branding and relationships, and in specific, I'm bringing on our guest, Jacob Wade. Jacob here is a nationally recognized personal finance writer for websites like Forbes, Timestamped, Money.com, The Balance, Investopia, Britannica Money, and more. He's also been featured on CBS News, MSN Money, Forbes, NASDAQ, Yahoo Finance, and AOL Finance. His background includes 5 years as an enrolled agent at an accredited CPA firm, where he prepared tax returns for individuals and small businesses. But more than that, Jacob Wade has a passion about investing because it allowed him to quit his job at 32, sell everything, and travel in his RV for 2.5 years with his family. Understanding investing helped him take back control of his life's most important resource, time. Jacob is also a money coach that helps high-earning families and business owners build a financial plan to reverse engineer their finances and figure out how much is enough, automating their investments and living the life they want now while securing their financial future at the same time. Jake has been running his online business full-time since 2020 after taking 2 years off of work completely, and he built a 6-figure writing business within 18 months with the help of relationships with the right people in the space. And he's been growing his coaching business through word of mouth and email marketing currently, all without running ads or promoting his business. Relationship marketing is a key to his current success, and that's exactly what we're going to dive in now. So, Jake, my gosh, what haven't you done, man?
Flattering me there, Danny. Thanks for the insanely warm welcome. I hope I can live up to that today.
It's your story, bro. So, Jake and I, just as a quick context, we've known each other for quite some time, and we've been sharing ideas over the last couple of years. And I got to say, it's been amazing watching his growth trajectory, where he's at now, where he's come from, the stuff that he's doing. I mean, it's truly like Jake is 100% a thought leader in the space when it comes to business finance. And I'm absolutely honored to have you on as a guest on the show, Jake. And you know how this show kind of goes. So I want you to give the audience a little taste, right? So this episode is all about branding, and really branding in 2024. It's really different than what it used to be back in, like, the 60s and the ad man days. A lot of the virtues carried over, but the way we brand is very different. And quite frankly, I'm looking at it from a lens of, branding is the equivalent of building relationships at scale now, like unlike we've never seen before. So with that context, give me a quick snapshot of a time and a place where in your journey, traveling in the RV, so on and so forth, all the different things that you've done, where maybe you were like, I don't know if I got this. I don't know if I should keep going. Like, maybe I should go get a job. Like, what am I doing? And what kind of a relationship did you build that kind of helped push the ball over the finish line that kept you coming back for more?
All right, I've got more than 2 hands worth of times where I'm like, should I just get a job within this journey? For sure. But man, if I zoom in on one specifically, it would be actually toward the end of that RV trip. So kind of rewind a bit. I was miserable at my sales job, had a mental breakdown. We had to just get out, and we found this open door, and I realized our investments had already set us up for life. And no, we didn't have millions of bucks, nothing like that. And that's part of the thing I teach, is like, you can get there a lot sooner than you think. But we quit and we traveled, and basically we used our home equity. We sold the house, we sold 90% of what we owned, packed all the kids in an RV, and we said, let's go. We had 38 states, 20 national parks, all within a 2.5-year time span. And we felt like we were just doing everything. And I'm like, I got to boot up an online business. And so I tried doing the influencer marketing thing. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be a travel influencer, this, that, and the other. And it wasn't quite working out how I thought. And so we were wrapping up our travels, and we settled down here in Florida. And I realized I actually literally need to either get a job or boot this business up to actually cover the bills, because it just wasn't happening. Again, I was being lackadaisical about it. I wanted to travel and enjoy all the cool spots we were in at that point. And now I'm like, okay, we're burning through too much cash. Like our burn rate's real bad. What do I do here? And there's two relationships that come to mind. One was just a pivotal conversation with a friend. And she's like, Jake, like you can do the SEO thing and the website and like the long-term, online business thing, or you could try being an influencer. She's like, but you know how to write. Like just go try do freelance writing. And just that conversation sparked like, okay, maybe this is a path. Because I've run a website since 2012. I know SEO. I've been around for a long time. And just that little conversation helped me go, okay, it might work. Sure, I guess. And so I started just like joining online groups and like writing groups and like just getting my name out there. And I had one connection with one editor. This happened to have been a person that I'd connected with in the past, but I was an advocate for her in the past. She was an advocate for me, seeing that I, was looking for writing gigs. She landed a gig at one of the largest financial publications owned by a big conglomerate, media conglomerate, and she landed me a job that ramped me up to 10K a month within 4 months of starting my writing career, which was absolutely insane. I was
Wow.
literally not making enough to pay the bills to making way more than enough just like that. And it was the way the relationship worked was one, like again, we had a little bit of a reputation in the past. We knew each other. I've always treated no matter who it was I was with, whether it was my peers or people I work for, kindly, my clients, right? I'm like, I want to over deliver for these people. And so she just went out on a limb and said, hey, we do have this writing gig. And, do you know insurance? Do you know this, that, and the other? And I'm like, yeah, I could probably figure it out. Like I wasn't necessarily the expert back then, but I'm like really well read and researched. But just like being very prompt and responsive, and then just leaning on the kindness of somebody that sort of extended that olive branch, opened up to an entire full-time gig. And then, like I said, within 18 months, I built a six-figure writing business, and it kind of hinged on that one moment, that one
Hmm.
relationship in a time where I was like, crap, I got to go get a job. So it was pretty crazy how that happened.
So this is a lot to unpack there, right? And I totally can understand. It's some of you that know I also travel in an RV full time with my family. Try the influencer route. There's still a YouTube channel out there if you want to see it. It doesn't take much digging to find it, right? But I totally get it, right? Like you go down that path, you live the life, it's amazing, and all of a sudden you're like, huh, I think I need to make some real money. Like this whole plan and this nest egg thing, like it's great,
Mhm,
it's there, but like if I'm not careful, the nest egg is going to go bye bye, and I'm going to be left here with nothing, right? So
mhm, mhm,
I totally get that. Now, this person that you met, well, there's actually two things that I want to talk about. One is someone was like, "Hey, why don't you write?" Right? And sometimes I think like that
mhm,
idea, as a matter of fact, the whole reason why I got my degree in biology is because somebody told me, "Hey, Danny, you're really good at biology. You should be a biologist." And I was like, "Yeah, I should do that." And that's what started my whole education in biology, my formal education in biology. So like I
mhm.
get that. So who was this individual that you ended up speaking with that happened to have this writing gig? How did you first meet that person? How long did you know them prior to them having this opportunity for you to write?
Yeah. So this person I've known because I owned a personal finance website back in 2012, and that was like a little more Wild West days of like online marketing and things. And so I joined up a group with other personal finance writers. There was this conference, and we all were kind of all new there and got together. And so we went to this sort of financial blogger conference or financial media conference, and just got to know each other. And she had a website, I had a website, a bunch of buddies had a website, and so we were just sort of like helping each other out. We were like, oh, hey, do this. Back then you would do things kind of like called link swaps, where you're like, hey, I'll link to your site, you link to mine. We'll share each other's stuff, right? And so that was pretty much it. And then we literally just like had some drinks at the conference a couple of times and just hung out, and it was just good vibes kind of thing, right? But I think what was separating us from just other people that are out there is we were all kind of striving to do something. We're like, we want to build an online business when there wasn't necessarily a great roadmap, over a decade ago. And we want to like, these are all side hustle things for us. And a lot of, friends in that group built into massive online empires essentially. And she went that editing route, and I left the space for a little while. And when I came back though, we just had a good rep. And the fact that she was an editor and she knows, okay, Jake's somebody that I've seen do work in the past and can rely on. right? I think it was that Jake's going to deliver. He's not going to let me down. And so that's such a big, critical, important thing to have in a relationship, especially if they're a client side relationship. Having that reputation, I tell people like, you're, charge what you're worth is a nice idea, but you need to charge what your reputation is worth. If you've built that
Mm.
reputation over time, that's truly where you can, get in there and actually start to do business. And so it really was just kind of like a casual relationship that turned into this really cool client, and freelancer relationship. And then I got in and I over delivered. And so then she continued to offer me work. And then as she's moved to other um, publications, she's brought me along and given me more work, and then referred me out and said great, nice things about me online, so that other people go, oh yeah, Jake could be good to work with. And it's sort of blossomed and turned into this, like I said, an entire business at this point.
That's awesome, man. And you hit something that struck a chord with me, right? And you mentioned reputation, and in tandem with branding,
Mm-hmm.
right? And brand reputation, I think, is probably the most common thing you hear around branding is reputation, right? And it's about the company's reputation, it's about your reviews, so on and so forth, past performance. But you started this back in 2012 when you started building this reputation. You were starting to brand Wade back before most people were like back then, because I remember even like when I was marketing on like Instagram in 2013 and things like that, people are like, oh, it's little kid stuff. It's the same thing that I got in 2020 when I started suggesting TikTok, and they're like, oh, what do you think, I'm gonna dance around, like. So walk me through that. Like, so 2012, is that when you would say that like you really started developing, like maybe unknowingly, but started developing
Mm-hmm.
who Jacob Wade is and what your personal brand was?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I didn't go out to create a personal brand. I literally just was passionate about, back then it was just budgeting and personal finance. And I was helping people at my job. I was helping family members with their money. And I was like, oh, I can do this online as well. And so I just started writing my thoughts online. And then back then, this was before social media got big, we would all comment on each other's websites. So there was other people in the space. And so part of that reputation was being built by just being friendly to other people in their comments sections. Right now, nowadays it's, social media comments, but it was the same type of thing. But this was way back, 12 years ago. And so I started to put out, I guess my vibe online, for lack of a better term. My reputation started to be Jake's friendly guy. He's passionate about this thing. He's really, focused on helping people save money. And again, reliability is one thing that I really wanted to be known for. But yeah, I guess I started building it back then without even thinking I'm building a personal brand. It was just, here's who I am online, and how I showed up has continued to follow me. The fact that I started back in 2012 is the only reason where I'm at today, is that I even had some of those established relationships. If I sort of just jumped in green in 2020, it would have been a different path for me. So that reputation, it really came in handy for sure.
And you hit something there too, right? Which is, you weren't just putting out content, you were participating in the process,
Mm-hmm.
right? Through active commenting, engaging with other people, and sharing content, sharing links across it. I mean, you were doing the stuff that we literally just talked about. I just released this on LinkedIn just last week when you and I had the conversation, right? And we'll get to that here in a second.
Yeah.
But you were already doing that stuff that so many people are missing today, because they think, oh, if I put out this great video, if I build it, they will come. But it's not just that, right? Like it's you got to put out good content, but then you also have to be a participant of the platform and participate with the community, right? So let's fast forward the timeline a little bit now. Let's ramp it up to 2020. So the infamous pandemic year, right? When everybody's lives changed. So now all of a sudden, okay, you're entering into the writing space, but you've had 8 years of already participating with these different digital platforms, generating content.
Mm-hmm.
So you've already kind of built up a little bit of a reputation for yourself. So by the time that opportunity presented itself, it was like a no-brainer for your relationship, right? I mean, they're like, well,
Right.
look, that's your past performance, is your digital presence at that point. Am I missing that, or?
Yeah, no, you're spot on, because I came into the space, and usually what you want to do if you're brand new to, especially, so let's I'm just going to hone in on freelancers, for example. You need to have a book of business and some proven track record to even have a ground to stand on. Because if you don't have a portfolio of work, then you can't even present that. And then in addition to presenting that, you got to like have some type of reputation if you want to accelerate your growth, right? You can go slow and just get on Fiverr and do real cheap jobs, and then take a while to ramp up. But I didn't have a while. Like I had to accelerate this thing. And so I leaned on that reputation. I had professional writing gigs back in 2014 and 2015. I'd actually written for some bigger websites. And then through relationships, I had been quoted on some of these larger websites, you know, AOL Finance and Forbes and some of these large places. So now I've got this online reputation, which was built through relationships. I just happen to know the people that were writing for them. And then I have this book of business, I guess you would want to call it, or this portfolio that I've written on my own website. And then I've written professionally for a few people. So bringing that all together, I could go into the writing space instead of just throwing my name out there and just saying, trust me. It's sorry, like, here's the evidence. And then bring that to the space. And then, of course, I started at the bottom. I was getting paid very, very low. And I tried to over deliver for these people. I worked my booty off. So then the editors, you know, as a writer, your editor is your best friend. And if you make their life easy, they'll tell other people about it. So I started to build reputation just by delivering quality work, right? Talk about building brand. If your brand is this person delivers, you know, you're going to just open up more and more business consistently. And then, yeah, so it was the end of 2020 that I just got into writing, and I wasn't barely making enough to pay the bills. And then this opportunity presented itself. But I had 6 months of ramp up, plus this, like you said, decade of reputation, or 8 years, I guess, of reputation to back it up. So all that made me very ready for the opportunity when it presented itself, and I just jumped right in. So I guess
And
it does take a while.
there's something there for the audience. And I think, you know, especially anybody that's entering into this space or entering into entrepreneurship in general, that I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Which is, you started doing this stuff for you because you wanted to, right?
Mhm.
Like it was a soul driven mission. It wasn't a, like, necessarily a direct paycheck out of the gates or a job or anything like that. This was like, no, I'm doing this because I'm passionate about it. And then eventually you started getting these quotes. Eventually you started building more of that reputation just from you doing your thing, until you hit that point where now all of a sudden you get real opportunity that shows itself. So
Mhm.
when that time happened, would you say, would you consider that maybe like end of 2020, like you said, is that when you started like heavily focusing in on like, okay, maybe I am a brand, maybe my company is a brand? Is that when you would say that you started like actively branding, if you will, or participating in branding activities? Or walk me through that.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, and because I run multiple businesses, writing's one of the businesses I run, coaching is the other business. I would say I tried actively branding through, like I was saying, I was trying to do influencer marketing type of thing where I rebranded to Roadmap Money, and we were still traveling. And so we're on the road, we're talking about money, right? I was like, oh, this is a natural branding thing. So I was thinking about branding, but I was truly only thinking about it from like how many likes do I get on my social media posts, you know, standpoint. But when I started realizing I can build a business very quickly using this reputation that I built, then I was like, my thought was, I need to build Jacob Wade, the brand, Jacob Wade, the writer, Jacob Wade, the extremely reliable, well-researched, super easy to work with guy. And so, yeah, I really started to focus on my personal brand instead of sort of like my influencer brand, if that makes sense. And then
Yeah.
that's where, like I said, it took off fairly quickly after that.
And so, okay, so now let's go fast forward from that time frame, right? So, okay, so now you realize like, okay, I need to start to elevate my personal brand. And a lot's happened since end of 2020. And like, I know, I know your story because we're friends, but maybe take the audience through. So like, what's the natural progression? So you got that first writing gig, you started over delivering. So you started producing stellar content, you started getting more writing work, but
Mhm.
that wasn't the end game for you, right? If anything, that was kind of like a vehicle to what you really are passionate about. So bridge the audience through that gap. So you're writing for finance companies, you're writing these financial blogs and things of that nature and articles. So then how did you connect the dots? What did that look like? And how were you able to carry that reputation with you?
Yeah, for sure. So writing was not like my original intention. My original intention, even all the way back to 2012, is I just want to help people with money because it made such an insane impact on my life. It shifted everything that I knew about how the world works essentially through, finance, because it touches every part of our lives. And so I had an idea of how to help people with that. And I just didn't really know how to take that to fruition. And then fast forward to 2020, I had to make some income, and I was pretty dang good at writing, and I knew SEO, and I had built some relationships and some reputation. So I ramped that up as quick as I possibly could. By April of 20 or May of 2021, I'd gotten it to the point where I was making 5 figures a month. And then that first year, full year, I almost hit 6 figures. And then it's been growing about 20% clip or more ever since then. And the writing piece not only made me extremely sharp and like way more detailed than I used to be about finance, but then what I realized is that reputation would carry over to being able to help the people that I want to help. Because originally I was helping people with just budgeting and just kind of getting and saving money and getting started, which is important. But the biggest impact on my entire life financially was learning about investing. And investing changed everything for me. It's the reason I quit my job and knew that I was still set for life, because we had 12 years of diligent investing and sort of honing in on this investment philosophy that I follow. And I was like, I need to help people with that, because that could literally change the course of people's lives, buy them back decades of their time that they don't realize they have, and financial freedom now, while still setting themselves up for later. And so I actually didn't even mean to go into coaching, but I got onto YouTube and I was passionate about this. So YouTube sort of became my outlet. And I was like, I want to talk about investing in these different concepts. And so one of my videos was just about investing for your kids. It was just, how I'm going to be investing for my children and how to help them build wealth and give them a head start. Funny enough, my chiropractor found that video, even though she didn't even know I was a YouTuber or finance or anything, and found me and said, "Hey, I just saw you on YouTube. Like that you seem really, really well educated on this stuff. We should chat." And then we started chatting, and he was like, she was like, "Can I hire you to do coaching? I really want to learn about investing and how it all works." And so the program that I have now was born from just goodwill, I guess, just putting myself out there on YouTube and going, how do I talk about the thing that's most important to me, that has the biggest impact, which is investing, which turned into a conversation, which turns into a 6-month coaching client, which, I even told her, hey, I'm going to be developing an entire program out of this thing. Here's the roadmap. And she's like, heck yeah, let's do this. I walked her through that, and then it helped me develop an online program. That's now the Freedom Investing course coaching program that I have. But it was sort of, she saw me online, and then she looked me up, and my name was on all these websites, and I was an active writer, and I was well researched. And so all of those things came together to help me transition into being able to coach people on investing. So it was just kind of this, everything's sort of connected, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And that's kind of the perfect segue to talk about your platforms of choice. So, you had the experience in doing like the vlogging type stuff, right, with the family, and then
Mm-hmm.
you got into starting to share more about your passion. I mean, I know candidly because we talked on the side, but for the audience here, I mean, Jake's made real money on YouTube and made real money just producing content for YouTube, right? So,
Yep.
what you brought up something last week that I really want to harp on, especially when it comes to branding and looking at YouTube. Let's just pick YouTube for now, because I know that you've done a lot of work there.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that it's kind of like a joint venture that you go about it with, right? Like your personal brand or your company's brand, and then the brand of YouTube, and understanding the differentiator there between it's not my audience, it's their audience. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit, as far as like the
Mm-hmm.
way that you look at that world, the way that you look at these platforms, and just kind of share with the audience a little bit about how you approached your content on YouTube relevant to that particular nugget?
Yeah, for sure. And you hit it spot on, where I used to think my followers were my audience. They're here for me. And the more that I've learned about social media and YouTube, but I mean, all of them work a very similar way. They have the audience, and they want to capture attention. And those platforms capture attention by looking at certain metrics, like how long is this person hanging out on my platform? And once I started to look at it through that lens, I go, oh, and YouTube was just, I like video, I like talking. I've got this whole YouTube background set up and like all that stuff. I love this stuff. But and I just like teaching. And so I had made some videos on YouTube. It was very spotty. And then I had more of a focused effort starting about a year ago. And again, my channel's still growing, it's still small, but I found a few things that have worked well. And once I started realizing, well, this is YouTube's audience and they're going to give the attention to the people that will capture it the best, then I go, okay, YouTube is actually more like my partner. And they go, hey, I've got this audience, but YouTube is a platform that relies on user-generated content, AKA me making a video. So now we're in this together. They need my content, but I need their audience. And so then I go, how do I make sure that their audience is served well? So that's one, making sure it's, the content is really good and delivers value, all those things. But even more than that, like zoom in a little bit, like I need to capture their attention for them to even stick around, right? So I need to make sure the thumbnail incites curiosity. So they go, oh, that's interesting. And then they read the title and go, okay, I need to know more about that. They click in the first 10 seconds, I have to get them to go, man, I have to watch the rest of this video because I need the information and then the payoff at the end. There's usually a promise at the end. And so if you package it well, which is what YouTube wants you to do, you capture attention, you serve people in a way that either changes their mind in a way, or teaches them something or entertains them, if you're in the entertainment field. And the longer they stay on that platform, the more YouTube goes, man, we trusted Jake with this viewer. He took care of that viewer. Let's go trust him with some more. And then let's trust him with some more. And I've got 2,700 subscribers at this point. Small channel that's still growing, but I've had videos, hit over 50,000 views. And even recent ones over 25 to almost 30,000 views because I sort of got that joint venture partnership thing and I serve the audience really well. And so it was really cool to see that in the actual data where YouTube started small and then all of a sudden my reach expanded and the impressions went way up and all of a sudden they're serving me to this much larger audience because I took care of them. But it's their audience, not mine.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, man. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into that because, in the way that we think about positioning brand from especially bigger businesses, right? And so we look at like, oh, we have brand guides and colors. I mean, obviously I'm big on brand, just look at my background, look at my shirt, right? So like, I get it, but I don't think a lot of businesses are taking into consideration that they also need to build this brand reputation with the platform that they're trying to build the brand on, right? And it's like an oversight. It's almost like, well, if I put out this great, Super Bowl type ad out there on social media, then people should enjoy that. And it's like, well, they might, or you got to do X, Y, and Z, and that the platform itself has to trust you. So I want to read this off to you real quick. I did this just before the call. So I asked ChatGPT to define brand as it pertains to B2B companies during the 1960s era. So I'm just going to read off the bullet points. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but they listed out 6 kind of core bullet points, which is reputation and trustworthiness, right? Corporate identity, relationships, product quality and innovation, corporate culture and values, and market positioning, right? So that's kind of how they address it from what it was done back in the 1960s. And I think that there's a lot of value in that carries over to today and part of our branding strategy. But before I go to the next piece of this, tell me, as you started to create more content, and this is more recently, you've really taken a deep dive and really peeling back the layers of the onion, and not just in YouTube. I know you're also looking at other social channels and exploring that too. What are some tactics? Maybe pick 2 things that you've done where you're hitting those 6 things that I just read off relevant to the platform viewing you as a trusted source.
Yeah. I mean, you said the first one, and I'll just have you repeat them real quick because I want to make sure that
So reputation and trustworthiness, corporate identity, relationships, product quality and innovation, corporate culture and values, and market positioning.
Yeah, and so YouTube's kind of the one that I'm focused on right now. And the idea behind YouTube, and there's all kinds of like how to grow on YouTube and make your videos and all this stuff. But the idea is you need to first capture attention by stopping people from scrolling, and then you need to get them into the video and then start delivering value. And so within just the image alone, right? They don't know who you are. They don't know what you stand for or whatever. Just the image alone, I need to make sure that it's clean. that I look reputable and trustworthy, that I look like maybe approachable, friendly, right? Like, because that's what I'm going for. That's the brand I'm trying to build. If I'm supposed to be standoffish and angry or whatever, I'll do that too. But that's YouTube because they're an image first platform. The first thing you do is see that image. And the only thing the image is designed to do is to get you to read the title. Right? That's literally how YouTube works. They're like, you want to stop the scroll, incite curiosity, get them just to read your dang title. You haven't even earned the click yet, right? And so just thinking about, you could sort of portray all 6 of those things through just the picture of me and I'm pointing to a title or something like that, right? And then once they read the title, it needs to be approachable, friendly, hey, maybe establish a little bit of authority. And then when they click in there, I've got just a few seconds to get them to believe me, know that I'm reputable, like my vibe, right? The culture. If you talk about, I know corporate culture, I'm just a solopreneur, but like they need to like be like, okay, I can vibe with this guy. And then ultimately, feel compelled to actually give me their time, which is a really, really valuable asset. That's something you got to think about. People giving you their time is probably more valuable than them giving you money. And so if you can earn their attention, you've provided something of immense value. So that's how I think about just approaching it through YouTube alone. And I will say other platforms, you can do it similarly, where it's like you're trying to get them to pay attention, give you some of their time, build authority and reputation right away, like right up front, so that they can trust the rest of the words that come out of your mouth. And then, there are little tips of like keeping attention and switching stuff every, 6 seconds on the screen, all that. But outside of that, it really is about trustworthiness, and the feel, for lack of a better term, of, the content you're trying to put out there.
No, that's a great analogy, right? So you're doing all this stuff knowing that this is, so you understand the business model of YouTube, I think is what you're kind of saying here, is like, look, I get it. So you're going through and you're checking these boxes of this brand reputation that you're trying to position it more towards YouTube as a whole, almost as if like, and I think a good example of this, right? I think anybody would appreciate this. Any business that you're in, I don't care what you're in, I don't care what industry you're in. If I come to you and I say, hey, I can bring you 10,000 new customers if you let me do X, Y, or Z to your current audience. I bet you I could bring 10,000, right? And I have a pretty clear track record. You're going to be like, yeah, no brainer, done. I think in YouTube too, like if you approach the executives of YouTube and you're like, hey, I can double your audience, which would be astronomical, right? We're talking billions. Now we're like half of the world population. I can double your audience if we partner. Of course, they're going to take they're going to listen to that, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what you're saying here is it's the same, and this is what I'm trying to get to, it's the same concepts that we were doing back in the 60s, but we have to do it slightly different in today's age in branding in 2024. You're still trying to check these boxes. And what happens is, if I'm understanding you correctly, is as you put out this content on YouTube and as you continue to follow these practices, the algorithm's starting to recognize you and going, up, trusted source. That guy brings us attention. Therefore, the next thing that he does, I'm going to go show it to more people, thus building his audience on my platform. Why? Because people are staying and consuming, right? Is that kind of the gist?
Yeah, 100%. And then, consistently showing up as well. Like you could go check out my YouTube channel and you'll see like, if I have a gap in showing up to that platform, they won't serve it to as big an audience, and then I'll ramp back up and something will pop again. But yes, you're building trust with that partner so they can trust you with more eyeballs, which, for any business owner could be potential clients, right? If you think about how much even just one set of eyeballs that turns into a client could be worth, that's massive. So trust is so important to build with the platform itself, not just with the people you're reaching on that platform.
That's brilliant. So with YouTube, so you mentioned the platform itself, right? So why do people use YouTube in your opinion, and how do you differentiate that content between YouTube versus, say, email? Because I know you're doing a lot of stuff on email. So what's your kind of strategy on that? Yeah, go for it.
I would say YouTube is the world's second largest search engine outside of Google. And so people go to YouTube to get answers to questions. And so if you can get them quick wins, you build trust. And one thing that I try to do in my videos. And I'll say this: I've got a mentor I'm working with who full time on YouTube and understands it very, very well. And he put this system together essentially. But the idea is you serve them well, answer that initial query. They don't know who you are, but you answer the question better than anybody else. And Google puts you, YouTube puts you at the top of the search results. How to whatever it is, right? Help open a high yield savings account. Oh, Jake has the 6x high yield savings accounts at 2024. Let me check that out. I get right to the point, serve them well. They pick one of those. That was awesome. At the end of the video, I go, that, these are the best accounts, but saving money is not enough. You got to start investing. And here's one of my favorite investing accounts. All of a sudden they get looped into that next video and they're starting to learn more. Now I'm expanding their view of money. I'm building more trust. And then ultimately they can come, over to something like my email list. I feel like social media is, if you think of sort of a long-term marketing funnel, is like you serve them well, and a few of those people will come over to your audience, which is the email list. That's the one audience you truly own, right? And then I can start delivering more value via email, and then I can, give them whether it's a cheat sheet or a calculator, or I could invite them. We can hop on a call and have a consultation. Like, we just sort of further the relationship, right? But YouTube to me is like they're getting introduced to me. I have to build trust, make them, answer that whatever that question is, because again, it's a search engine, and then I further the relationship through things like email marketing. So it's like step one, step two.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, if you're basically saying that if someone raises their hand and asks a question, you're coming in, you're providing that answer to them, that then also allows them to not only solve their question, but also elevate their life in some regard. And then therefore they come back to you, they want more, and they're like, actually, let's talk more. They sign up for your newsletter. That's where you can hit them with even more until eventually you get them into where it's a phone conversation and eventually a client. Sounds like a very humanistic approach, Jake. It doesn't sound like some crafty back end work that you're doing to get this ungodly amount of reach. It just sounds like you're just being a human being in this process, and that's exactly what we talk about on this podcast, right? Just Be Humans. It's all about taking that humanistic approach, and something that I absolutely love is how this is all for your soul, right? Like I feel like from what I'm understanding, you've been doing this for a long time, well over a decade now, around a very similar topic. I think maybe you've changed some things around in the process, right? But you've been doing it for a long time around it. So the lack of content really isn't an issue for you necessarily. However, what do you do to inspire new pieces of content to either, well, let's do it for two things. One, to enrich your existing audience, and the second would be to capture a new audience. How are you looking at those two kind of buckets?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, just to reiterate your point, it's just being human. And I do that through coaching. So I've got this coaching program and I've got people going through that. Every human has different circumstances, but a lot of people experience very similar things. And so when I come across something through coaching that I go, man, I bet other people will relate to this, that's a content idea for me. So then I could send an email to my list on it, or create a YouTube video and be like, I had a client that was struggling with this and they were thinking this, but it was actually this. And so then all of a sudden, it's kind of like when you're in a classroom and someone raises their hand and asks the question, and like 20 other people, they're like, oh, thank God somebody asked that question, because I had the exact same question. And so I think about it that way. I'm like, there's a ton of other people that I could serve with this content, because I know if this one coaching client has this question, then a ton of other people can be served by it as well. And so then I put that out there, and then hopefully get more and more people to resonate. And then next time they'll shoot me an email or hop on social media or in the comment section and raise their hand, right? And say, oh, what about this? And then that just kind of perpetuates more and more ideas to start to serve my audience even better.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, that's that feedback loop, right? We talk about that in tech all the time, where we're monitoring user data and we're wanting to see what people are doing where, and then we enhance those features that they're using more of, right? So it's kind of like user inspired, user generated content, right?
Seriously.
Let's add some more acronyms to the mix, because, hey, why not? We're in digital marketing and that's what we do. But no, that makes perfect sense. So I got another interesting piece that I want to hit on, and this is now fast forward to where you're currently at and how you're looking at the future.
Mhm.
And one of the biggest things, as a matter of fact, so going back to the ChatGPT thing, I did the same question, but I asked them to define it in today's terms. I'm
Mhm.
going to read it off, but I'm only going to talk about one in particular because I think it might be, well, I mean, they're all very important, but I think the one in particular struck a chord with me. I think it was one for you. And by the way, Jake didn't know I was going to do this, so I'm curveballing him.
All right, let's do
Um,
it.
so, identity, reputation, values and mission, customer experience, storytelling and narrative, differentiation, engagement and community, digital presence, cultural relevance, and then emotional connection. Right. So
Mhm.
that's how ChatGPT defines branding in 2024. And the one in particular that I want to hit on is that I think might be one of the most compelling and one of the most important that actually kind of encompasses a lot of this stuff. And that's storytelling and narrative. Right. I think when you look at if you look at like how you're going to release content, if you think about your content schedule and the way that you're going to position yourself with the different types of pieces you're going to release, talk to me a little bit about how that relates to storytelling. I mean, are you only focused on storytelling individual for one little piece of content, or are you thinking more long term in the sense of like, I'm going to do this content and this content's going to build on this content, so on and so forth? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different pieces for organic reach for content. So, and again, we can just use YouTube as the example. Um, there's a couple of approaches. One is let me answer the question and just like get them into my world as a trusted source, and then I'll link them to maybe other videos that have a piece of the story. My story is very specific. My story is one of high earning corporate burnout, um, realizing that I could actually make a massive change before having millions of bucks. I can do this huge change, and I'm still set up for life. And taking back 2.5 years of my time while my kids were still young. So it's a very, very specific story arc that I have. And then building an online business instead of going back to the corporate world. And so, but I usually don't like that story can resonate with some people, but I get more eyeballs by just honestly the kind of the SEO focused, like, let me answer a very specific question for these people and build their trust first before I launch into my story. That story
Mm,
also builds itself into like my email sequence. If somebody joins my email list, I can go, hey, just so you know, before I start to give you more value content, answer questions, here's where I'm coming from. And what I think it does is it does one of two things. One, it either people goes, I don't care about that. Like that is I have no passion for that. I really don't care about your story or whatever. They move on. Great. Or they go, wow, that like resonates with me in a huge way. I want to learn more about this guy. I want to hear more from him. I would rather hear his voice above other people that might be talking about the same thing. And right, it's the whole Dan Kennedy magnetic marketing thing. Like you repel the people you don't, that aren't going to value from being in your sphere, and then attract the people that want to hear that story. I think story it's huge. Like that's how I got to bring people into my world if they join my email list. It's how they get to know who I am and then trust my voice down the road. It's so when I am actually coaching them, at some point they become my client and I coach them, they know where I'm coming from. They have the human piece of me, not just the data points of what I'm trying to tell them. And they go, okay, Jacob has this background and is saying this. So he's coming from this experience. So it means something so much more than just, here's the facts and figures of your financial plan type of thing. So I think storytelling is massive. I have a ton of work to do in storytelling. I'm not going to say I'm great at it at all, but I really do like to bring all of that together. To again ultimately serve people better, because I think they're going to resonate more and listen to my words more if there's a compelling story behind it.
that's awesome, man. And you said something that I just want to highlight. I think a lot of people could benefit from, especially in the way of storytelling, right? And that's you're telling your story to attract an audience. I think everybody kind of gets that concept. But you said something very interesting, which is you're also telling a story to repel an audience, right? To
Mm-hmm.
discourage the audience. And that I don't think many people think about it that way, right? Like everybody, when you hear something like that, we think, oh, that's bad. Like we don't want to do that. That's going to damage our brand, right?
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
I want you just to pull the thread a little bit more on that and just your experience of did you ever have a situation where you were attracting maybe the wrong audience, or maybe not the wrong audience, but maybe the underqualified audience, whatever the case is,
Mm-hmm.
versus, and like when you started to pull in the right audience, like what was that kind of like? I don't know if you have an experience like that. I know I've had a handful myself, but I want to hear from you.
I'd say my rebranding, I was I Heart Budgets. That was my website. It was budget focused. It was just all about the budget. Well, that serves a very specific audience in a very specific way. But when I wanted to start to build a business around investing, because I'm like, budgeting is sort of like just getting your legs under you, but man, investing is like the superpower that like allows all this other financial freedom. I had built a pretty large, sizable email list of people that were focused on the budgeting, saving hacks and coupons type of stuff. And so when I started to try to serve them with my new content, let's just say I got a lot of unsubscribes. I got a lot of non-response and non-opens. And I ended up clearing out a lot of my list, deleting thousands of people off that list because I was not going to be serving them going forward. I had already served them. Maybe they had moved on, whatever it was. And so, and what I was putting out was just absolutely not resonating. And so it sort of repelled the people that I had maybe helped in the past, or they were doing something else. But then again, like I was saying, my first coaching client came from somebody that found me on the internet that I happen to know in real life, right? And those two worlds married together because I was talking about something that was really important, which was investing, and it pulled that person into my sphere. And so, yeah, and I'll say this is all Dan Kennedy, OG marketing guy. He used to do mailers, back in the 70s, 80s. He's the guru that sort of came up with the concept of magnetic marketing, where a magnet has two sides. One is polarizing and one is attractive. And so I
Mm.
just like thinking about that concept. The more I put out content, and I'll say if anybody's into Enneagram and Enneagram 3, I want everybody to like me. So it's hard for me to do that. But man, if I get on and I say something that offends somebody, like I'll probably do something right, because there's going to other people go, yeah, throw their hand up. So I'm working on it. But that's definitely something that's going to be in my content going forward.
That's awesome, man. And look, we're coming up close to time here, so
Mm-hmm.
I want to wrap this up with just one piece of, give us one nugget about where you are heading, so where roadmap money's going.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a little bit of context around that, of like where your vision is, how it's growing, so on and so forth. And then in particular, maybe one strategy that you're going to apply relevant to expanding your brand and expanding these relationships at scale as you go off and execute on that vision.
Yeah. So, like I said, I write for these large financial websites. I'm blessed to have great clients and work with them. But I'm so much more passionate about helping people manage their finances and ultimately their investing to buy back more of their time. And so, through working with that initial client and over the last year, I've built out a very, very comprehensive coaching program. I call it the Freedom Investing course, but it's a one-on-one coaching program where I walk people through. It's 12 weeks. We meet 6 times. There's 40 plus videos that go into that, but it's the details, the start to finish of everything to become basically your own financial advisor and build a financial plan that buys back your time, buys back your life. And so I'm so passionate about that. That's where I'm starting to ramp up marketing for that. It's really only been word of mouth, kind of like you said in the intro. I'm just connecting with people locally to the point where people go, dude, you got to check out Jake's thing, go chat with him. And so it started to expand that way. But what I'm going to start doing, the vision for the future is to ramp up, so like I was saying, some of those client questions and stories that I come across, and start putting those out in my online organic content, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever that platform is. And then ultimately, I will actually expand it into putting out digital ads and starting to bring people into my sphere, build some trust, get everybody on my email list, and then start to grow that program. Ultimately, I would love that I want to help 1,000 people, grab financial freedom. People that, my big thing is like, if you make 6 figures plus, but you feel like it's all disappearing, you can harness that and literally buy back decades of your life. So like, that's who I'm going after. Young professionals that really want to optimize their money and get to freedom way sooner. So that's who I'm going after. Yeah, I mean, I really want to build it into ultimately a big online community of motivated individuals that want to tackle this money thing the right way, automate it, and then really go live the life that they want to be living.
So that's awesome, man. And I think one thing that I took away from that too, just for the audience listening as well, Jake's inspiration on expanding on the brand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, is listening to your existing audience, listening to what they are talking about, what kind of questions that they're asking, and then recognizing. And I love that analogy because I've been in that situation before where I didn't get a subject, but I was embarrassed to put my hand up, especially in college when like lecture halls are like 80 plus people. And like often I didn't care because I just have a more of a extroverted personality. But there were many times I didn't want to look stupid, right? And someone would put their hand up. I'm like, thank you, right? So I love that analogy. And I think that that's so critical for so many of our audience. Like, listen to your people. And this was, if you go back to even one of our previous episodes with Eric Gregory, he talks about winning a multi-billion-dollar deal because he listened. And I think that that's a highly underrated thing, especially in the noise of social media, of turning on that listening ear. So I really appreciate that. And then I'm going to give you one shameless plug. I will be signing up for Jake's course here in the next 30 days as well, to help tackle my personal finances. So that being said, Jake, if other people are interested in you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? How do they find you?
Yeah, I mean, so roadmapmoney.com is the website. That's just kind of a holding place for some of my legacy content. But YouTube is where I've been at. So youtube.com/at roadmapmoney. You can DM me on Instagram at roadmapmoney. And if you want to chat directly, if something resonated with you about the program, or if you just want to talk about personal finance and investing in sort of long-term planning, happy to have a call. I do free consultations. We can chat. Just roadmapmoney.com/call. And we could chat.
Awesome, man. Well, do you have any other parting notes for this episode, or?
I would say, dude, you're spot on with just the name of the podcast alone. Just be human to other people. And I believe it might be a Zig Ziglar quote, but the idea that help enough other people get what they want, then you can have whatever you want. And so if you can think about it that way and serve well, you'll do just fine.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Well, that's a wrap, guys. Again, Danny Marowinski here, Jacob Wade. Thank you so much for being on the show. We're going to definitely put you out there. Be sure you check them out, roadmapmoney.com. And again, guys, this is Just Be Humans, the definitive podcast for business leaders who have built their businesses on relationships and are looking to digital marketing to scale. And again, can't thank you enough, Jake. Thanks so much. As for now, I'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks.